welcome to my August 3rd, 2026. This is video number 15, and I've decided to make it in order to answer a question a friend of mine had about everlasting life, which is that she was confused about it not being an afterlife. Like, even for me, when I first went through the experience, in my mind, everlasting life was like another life. It was like another reality. But this is actually not the case. The case is that everlasting life is the universe. The entire universe is everlasting life. And Earth is in the same universe, experiencing time, taking into account time dilation. Don't worry about that. I'll get into that in another video. But it's experiencing its time at the same time as things are happening in everlasting life. So there is no different reality. It's in the timeline that's happening for us is a timeline that's happening at the same time in everlasting life on other living life planets. And again, I'll get into the technicality in another video about that. But for her, it was confusing because she thought it was kind of like an afterlife, because we're so used to the Bible. And I know a lot of you are very faithful to the Bible. You're faithful to the Bible in probably a more heartfelt way than you actually might even feel about who God is and the reality of God. So people fall in love with their beliefs. It's in our design that we are obsessed with the truth. Even when we believe lies, we may believe a complete lie. Think about people who believe the earth is flat, but they believe it's the truth because they believe that they have seek the truth. And what I'm trying to say is that we're always picking and choosing what the truth is, even though we're obsessed with reality. But there's two types of truths. There is the truth, which is physical reality, and then there is your truth. The truth is the universe. The truth is physical reality. So it's when you drop a ball and it bounces, that's the reality of what happened. You can't change that. And then there's your truth. And your truths are, of course, your perception of reality and how you perceive it and what you choose to believe. That's your truth. So people are struggling with that right now in our Western society. Not so much in the other societies, only in the Western society. And they're confusing their own truths with the truth. So you can have your own truth. You can believe whatever you want. That's free will. But when something happens or something is physical, then if you deny that as the truth, then you're believing lies. And people fall in love with their beliefs. And that is very, very dangerous because they could be believing a lie. They could be living and acting out the intelligence virus, and that's why it's dangerous. And So in the Bible, you know, people believe it word for word. Some people think there's no mistakes in it. It's a perfect book that was written by God, and that's what they call it, is the Word of God. But the fact is, it wasn't written by God. It was written by people. And I am a modern person, and not only that, I'm a woman, and like literally nobody in the Bible, nothing was written by a woman, I don't think. So that's another reason why people aren't gonna respond, or they're gonna be more apt to ignore me, because we're always used to only men having experiences where they communicate with God, except for, of course, Mary. But yeah, so even I can tell you from my own experience, what I experienced is the communication, which, by the way, you will understand when you read the book Judgment Day and Thereafter, which is, I'm just doing a final read finally, so I'll be publishing it free on Amazon. But you will understand that the communication, from my own example, I can tell you, and because of free will and God follows the one law 100% and respects our free will 100%, the communication is never in the present moment. So when I was receiving answers, they were through memories of things that were said in the past to me by God, in the actual real past, not in some other life. And that I was then remembering the answers. So God is all powerful. And when we say things out loud, God knows the outcome of every outcome, and God knows the future. Even though the future is, you have free will, it's not predetermined. You haven't already done things in the future, but future is a place of all possibilities, and God just knows which possibility will occur. So when you say things out loud, it's written into the universe formula. God has access to it. And so then God replied to something you asked in the past. And then when it comes to that time, when you ask that question, then God will give you that memory back of the reply. And all of this happens with God's permission, with your permission to God. So all of this is why people who have had experiences with God are all from everlasting life. So if you are new intelligence, if you are infant intelligence, an earthling, then you will have never had any kind of an experience like this with God because of free will. So everlasting life, and this is kind of confusing in the Bible too, because Jesus talks about everlasting life, and then the Bible also talks about heaven and afterlife, so it's confusing, right? But the Bible was written by people, and I can tell you from experience that it's very easy to become delusional and start making stuff up. Get your nose out of there. My puppy's here, tied up, being restless. But I think there is a lot of wisdom in the Bible. I think there is a lot of great stories that are exemplary that we can take. But the reason even though I have a Bible, the reason I can't read it is because It's just too metaphorical, symbolical, and it's left to the interpretation of the reader. So you can take, the, what do they call it? The rapture or whatever. You can take the end times events. You can take it and you can find it. You can make it to come true by looking at, picking and choosing what's happening in the world. But what's happening in the world is no different than what's always been happening. People have always been the same. Some people were always vain. Some people were always, corrupt. And so the Bible is left to the interpretation of the reader. And let me make this clear to you. I know God from everlasting life. I have a friendship with God. But in EL, we think of God as Father. God is our Father. And never ever would God talk to us in metaphors and symbolism. God talks to us in ways that the expression is 100% I mean what I say. There's no ambiguity. You're not going to be unsure. That's why I know the Bible was not written by God. And it's not even, a lot of it is not about God. Penny. A lot of the Bible is not about God. A lot of the Bible is about personal people's faith. About who they think God is. Penny! Give me that. Give me that. That toy has got to go. Let's confiscate it. Because let me tell you this. The story about where God apparently tests people's faith in himself, or I don't want to use words that might offend people, but I'm gonna use it anyway. It's ridiculous. We do not have a vain God. If you think God is vain, you don't know God. God is not vain. God does not need or want worship. In the story where the man is asked to murder his son to prove his love for God, that's written from the point of view of the person who had this idea about how much I love God that I would do this. Disaster is happening here. So at the end of my book, I have a section called About God, where I talk about who and what God is. And I know there's this whole thing going on about how we identify, how I identify, and God has that as well, because God has free will and God chooses who it is. And God is not a person. God is not a man. God is not a physical being. That is not how we are in God's image. God is something else. And God is not vain. God does not have the intelligence virus. God has never ever had a single intelligence virus thought. But God has the ability to even pick and choose what it remembers, what it knows and doesn't know, sees and doesn't see. So in that way, we do not have a spying God. So don't worry about personal things that you would want to be in by yourself in private. We do not have a spying God. We do not have a vain God. And we do not have a vengeful God. God has never ever taken the life of anybody. That's, again, it says that in the Bible. Oh, she's just chewing her ball. There's a part where God is vengeful and God murders babies. That's ridiculous. God has never ever taken the life of anybody. That would be breaking the one law. And again, that story, I think all the stories in the Bible were put there to manipulate the reader, because when you are the reader, you are the sheep. Writers are the shepherds. Readers are the sheep. Even me right now, I'm speaking. I'm shepherding your thoughts. And by doing that, I have the ability, I have literally the power to change your beliefs. That is the biggest power that you can have. That is what all Hitler was practicing. That is what all writers. So when we speak, we're writing, except it's into the universe. It's sound writing. So when you're receiving any kind of information through language, then you are a sheep. And writers, the religious writers, always wanted you to make sure that the reader was manipulated into believing that this is the truth. Because again, we're obsessed with the truth. Even when we follow lies, when we believe lies, it's because we're obsessed with the truth. And falling in love with your beliefs is the most dangerous thing you can do, because you could be believing a lie. So you have to always check your beliefs. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that for me personally, I pick and choose what I believe, what I want to believe from the Bible. And to me, what really only stands out in the Bible is Jesus's words. And even then, I don't believe everything. Like, I don't believe that Jesus had a temper tantrum over a market in a temple. Again, everybody in everlasting life knows Jesus, and I have a memory. I have a memory of meeting Jesus. Everybody knows Jesus, and when you choose everlasting life, Jesus will seek you. So God doesn't seek us, but Jesus seeks us. Seeks to know us, all of us, every single person in everlasting life. That's how Jesus lives in EL with us, is that he seeks to meet all of God's new children, whether you're born in EL or once per universe cycle, you join everlasting life as infant intelligence. And that is when Jesus will be back, the day after Judgment Day, to meet you. Not to, there's not gonna be 1,000 years or whatever they call it, the rapture. All that is imagined. Again, a lot of you who have had this belief about the future and Jesus's part in it, you know, you're gonna be possibly angry when I say that Jesus is not coming back. There's no second coming. But yes, he will be back the day after Judgment Day. But not to rule. That's not who Jesus is. Did he ever, while he was here, say, I'm the king, I'm gonna rule you? No. Somebody made that up. Because that's what they wanted. They wanted Jesus to rule. But Jesus lived out his purpose here on earth. He chooses himself for that purpose, to be born on the infant worlds only once per universe cycle. Does Jesus choose himself to be born on infant worlds and to do what he did, which is point at the right God? Because infant intelligence, due to our design of seek your creator and shame and guilt and free will, always has religions. So what's happening on Earth is no different than any other infant intelligence planet. All infant worlds have religions. And then Jesus is born and points and tells us. But on the Earth, it was very, very tricky. Everything was very strategic. And Jesus didn't have much time like he did on other infant worlds, where he lived out his life peacefully. And people thirsted to know what Jesus said. And he was with us until in his 40s, when God returns him back to everlasting life. So a very different life experience for Jesus on planets. So, going back to the Bible, it talks about heaven and it talks about hell. I believe it says that Jesus even talked about hell. I don't believe that. There is no hell. Why? What kind of a God would God be if he, number one, created angels to worship him? That'd be a vain God. And created basically slaves. And then gave the slaves free will. And then watched as the bad ones, who he cast out of heaven, were in our minds, making us believe that their thoughts are our thoughts, making us do things, whispering bad things. So the devil was created to blame due to what I call shame and guilt shock. It is in our design that God designed us with 3 things: free will, shame and guilt, and seek your creator. Shame and guilt and seek your creator, it's like a program, where if God is our programmer and programmer of the universe, and we are like AI, God's AI, God gave us free will, but 2 gifts: shame and guilt and seek your creator. Now, when we have really heinous thoughts, we were shocked. We get shame and guilt shock. And then we seek to blame. Those are not my thoughts. And then because it's in our design to self-talk, we can even have a conversation with ourselves, believing we're talking to an entity. So we all do this. We all self-talk every single day. If you see somebody on the road and you just self-talk. Why is he driving like an idiot? Oh, he must be drunk. Or why this? Oh, this. What's that sign? All this. So these little self-talks that we do every day. And that's very normal. It's in our design. In fact, that's the perfect design, because that's free will. Is we self-talk, we question, and then we answer. And when we question, we always seek the truth, right? And so going back to the Bible again, heaven and hell, there's no such thing. There's only the universe. That's the only thing that's real. There's no afterlife. So everlasting life exists in the same universe at the same time, having a common timeline of the universe. So the universe experiences its own time passing on a universal scale. I know this goes against what the scientists are saying, but again, I made a video, Mechanics of Time, where I explain what the universal time is. And you were born, you had your childhood, you're living your life, and if you make it till Judgment Day, you will just simply wake up one day. It's not gonna be apocalyptic. There's not gonna be anything religious happening. You will wake up one day, but when you look out your windows, there's gonna be spaceships everywhere, as far as the eye can see. If you live in a city, you're gonna see hundreds, and they're gonna be silent, just waiting for God to tell them when it is okay to come down. And then you will meet your first aliens, but they're all human beings. So that's how you will join everlasting life. That's your first. Judgment Day is like the interim. Earth is not part of EL yet, but everything, the rule of man has ended. And on Judgment Day, no technology will work. All technology, infant intelligence technology will cease to function, because you will start using everlasting light technology. But don't worry, all of your pictures and all the stuff that's in your technology right now will be waiting for you in your house, in the technology there. Because again, God knows the outcome of every outcome. And on Judgment Day, you'll have the option to go with the aliens, and they will take you anywhere in the universe. And whatever planet you choose. And then you can scroll through the available houses, or apartments, or acreages, whatever. God will know. God already knows which one of you will choose EL, and then where you'll choose to go. And therefore, he has been, with the help of people from Everlasting Life, preparing us, preparing for your arrival. So your house will be ready for you. And God knows which house you'll pick, and your technology is going to be there with all of your pictures and stuff of your children and all your dearest memories. And that's Judgment Day. If you choose to stay on the earth, then you will witness the earth being cleansed, free of all garbage, all oil spills. I'm talking everywhere, down to the last gum wrapper in the woods somewhere, and down to even in the deepest depths of the ocean. So Judgment Day, if you stay on the earth, is gonna be very, very busy for you. You're gonna see a lot of spaceships and a lot of alien technology, vehicles and submarines and boats, and they're just gonna keep coming in great numbers. And that's 24 hours. They will do this in 24 hours. So think about that. I know in your mind you're thinking that's not possible. You're thinking about, for example, the trash piles in India. But yes, they will clean all of that up with God's help. And you're probably thinking, well, what if there's stuff the intelligence fires that they don't want to see? Well, we actually wear glasses. So Father communicates with us, just like I said, up here. Face to God's infinite image. And guides us and tells us what to destroy. And we wear these glasses that makes us see some other things. Just so if we don't want to see certain things, we wear gloves and stuff. And then, of course, certain areas we just bulldoze. And like I said, with God's technology, we will clean the entire earth in 24 hours and say goodbye to the internet, say goodbye to Facebook, say goodbye to all the apps, everything. That will all cease to exist on Judgment Day. And then you go to sleep, and that is when you have to meet God, soul to God's infinite image, because that is on Judgment Day only. God will ask your permission to cleanse your soul, free of the intelligence virus, and this is what it means to receive God's forgiveness. Because even God will cleanse his own memories about anything negative that you've done, and God will forget. That's ultimate forgiveness. God will forget anything and everything negative you did or that was done to you. And because of the physical design of the universe, in that there is no physical past being replayed over and over. I talk about that in my video, Mechanics of Time. Even God cannot look back upon the past because there's no record of the past to see what you've done. All God will know is who you choose to be in everlasting life. And so that's how earth will become part of everlasting life. It's not a different reality, it's the same reality. It's just that earth is outside of everlasting life. It's like in a bubble. You can imagine it's the dark matter veil that prevents us from seeing the universe as it actually is. So on Judgment Day, when God removes the dark matter veil, the universe at night, the stars, it's gonna look different. It's gonna look very different because we're gonna see more. The universe there's more stuff. There's even more stars and planets and solar systems. It's so to finish the video, the reality is the same. Everlasting life is not a different life. I guess though, if you are from EL like me, and by the way, you will also remember your existence, your true existence in everlasting life, just like I did. Because the earth is really, really bad. The intelligence virus is very, very prevalent. And so God has chosen to activate his backup plan. His backup plan is that God will awaken every single person who is here today who is from everlasting life, just like I am. And we will then do what I'm doing right now, which is try and get people to choose everlasting life. And they only have to do two things: let go of their slaves and do good deeds. But Jesus has already said that. This is how Jesus had helped millions and millions of people choose everlasting life, because he said, slavery, do not have slaves. Do good deeds, help each other. And that's literally the only two things you need. There's no religion to follow. All religions are man-made. They're all imagination. I'm not saying don't go to church. I go to church I like to sing songs and show God gratitude and be around others who want to do the same. It's a gathering. It's, a communion. But not saying, give up your Sunday church going. But doesn't matter what you wear, what you eat, or what you don't eat. Doesn't matter how much technology you use or don't use. Doesn't matter, your all those religious rites, religious rules are man-made. So none of that will make sure you wake up on Judgment Day. Because of course, on Judgment Day, one of two things will happen. Either you wake up or you don't. And like I said, God has never taken the life of anybody. This is why the awakening era is happening now, so that you choose whether you wake up or not. So know that. Know that when your loved ones don't wake up on Judgment Day, God didn't take their life. They knew it was coming, and they chose not to wake up. Because we must self-judge. God will not judge. Jesus does not judge. We are created to self-judge. That's why we have shame and guilt. But we have the free will, right? So we self-judge according to God's one law. Thou shalt not prevent nor hinder the free will of anyone. Thou shalt not enslave anyone to your will. So if you had slaves, and we always know, we know who's under our thumb or wrapped around our pinky, right? So this may include when you're stringing somebody on and using them because you know they have a crush on you. That's still a form of slavery. Or if you're taking somebody donations for yourself, that's all slavery. So you know, God doesn't even need to know, because you know yourself. You know why you're doing what you're doing. You know what your thinking is, and you will judge yourself by that. Whether on Judgment Day or your death day. If you die before Judgment Day, then that is your Judgment Day. And we all judge ourselves when we die before God. And then if you had slaves and didn't choose everlasting life by doing good deeds, you will die. And then God chooses to forget you. Like I said, God has the power to do that. God chooses to forget you, and then when your loved ones wake up in EL after they've had their soul cleansed, they will also have forgotten you. And in that way, it's as if you never existed. And I always think about people who do heinous things, who shoot up crowds just to be notoriously famous. And I just think, what did you do? God will forget you. We will forget you. You literally took your own life. For what? And I think about people who take part in capital punishments. I think about people who take part in assisted suicide. I think about people who perform abortions. That's all murder. And that goes against God's one law. Taking somebody's life goes against God's one law. So you have to choose whether you let the government guide your morality or God. So you have to choose. Because we're followers, right? We're like sheep. We always let others tell us what's right and wrong. And then when we find groups of people that all believe the same thing, we're more apt to join that group, just to be part of that group. But you have to check your beliefs. So I guess I'm going to finish there, because again, my videos are getting too long. I think I answered what I started the video with, which is that there's no heaven, there's no hell. Everlasting life is the entire universe. Earth is an infant intelligence planet. It's not part of everlasting life yet. Not until Judgment Day. Judgment Day is, in fact, very close. That's why I was born to remember. I chose myself, by the way. God didn't choose me. I was born to remember everlasting life. I wrote a book about it called Judgment Day and Thereafter, which is going to be free on Amazon. It's not too long. It's going to be very easy to read. It's only 108,000 words. So, and a lot of that is other writing. So I'm going to include all of my writing in this book. And the awakening era always happens on infant intelligence planets, the same. But it is designed by God. So when events happen, it's because God chose that that's what's going to happen. And it happens so that you're aware that Judgment Day is coming, and that when you go to sleep, there's going to be a day where you might not wake up, even though you're perfectly healthy. And that's going to be Judgment Day. If you don't choose everlasting life, you will not wake up on Judgment Day. And then you will cease to have ever existed. There's no hell. I just think that's very scary, to be just completely forgotten by God and by everybody that knew you. So, but I don't want to leave it on that note. I want to leave it on a happy note, which is the awakening era is finally happening on the earth. And because the intelligence virus is so prevalent, I cannot do this alone. All of you who are from everlasting life will need to wake up as well and remember your true existences in everlasting life. And then the awakening era on the earth will be very special. And this is what God told me during my second awakening experience. A few times, the awakening era on earth will be very special. But that's it. I don't know how, but I'm assuming that because I'm not going to be the only one who's going to tell you their life story from everlasting life. So I hope to see you soon. If you have any questions, please leave them for me, and peace.